Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Mindset Revolution with Raquel. I am so excited to be here with my guest, Sherri Danzig, who is with Choosing Vibrancy.com. I'm having a problem with my words all day, so if they come out a little fumbled, I'll just catch it. Be like, that's not what I meant to say. How many planets are in retrograde and messing with my communication, and I am a talker. I'm really excited to have Sherri with us today because she is a self-care mentor coach. She has an exciting work that she does in different spaces, and so I know that you're going to get something out of it. Welcome, Sherri, to the podcast and the vlogcast. Thank you so much for being here with us.
It's my pleasure, Raquel. Lovely to be here.
But one of the things I wanted to jump in is that when I was looking at your website, what really caught my eye was this phrase that you face mountains of change and overwhelm and the noise and chaos. And there's so many women who could identify with that and be like, okay, tell me your secrets. Tell me, what happened to you, because our stories and the stories of our failures and our pits, but also the triumphs really, help to echo throughout time and to let people know, what you're facing is not you. I'm in Chicago, very urban, so you might hear some urban noise, just ignore it. So when I read that, I was like, wow, this really resonates with so many women. We have so much going on, and it doesn't matter when you're hearing this, you are going to benefit from Sherri's life experience and what she did in order for her to come out victorious. So Sherri, why don't you go ahead and tell me a little bit about what were the mountains that you were facing in this place of overwhelmness, of noise, of chaos? And how did you get out of that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I was facing is that I had this, childhood image of me as a mother. And I also had a personality that I didn't know at first. I didn't go to school thinking I was going to be an entrepreneur, but that came to me. And so I realized I was bold. I was bold as a kid. I wanted to have everything. I wanted to eat my cake and eat it, have my cake and eat it too. And so I had the makings of an entrepreneur even before I knew it, right? And so here I was, becoming a mom and having a new business, and they were all kind of colliding at the same time. And I wanted to be perfect at both. And I was holding myself to such a high standard. And so I was, not sleeping a lot. I was staying up late to get things done because that was like my little secret sauce. I'll just lose sleep and get, as many women can relate. And so when I started really diving into this, I realized it's like we come by this as women. It's such a culture. It's generational of us feeling like we have to be perfect, that our image is so important. And when I did research on this, Raquel, I realized that they've done studies of little girls versus little boys in school. And it shows up as little girls where we feel like we're overachievers, right? We're doing all this stuff to be the best, to turn in the best projects. And guys aren't programmed with that. It's a cultural thing in so many aspects. And so, what that does is it makes you think, you question yourself, you doubt yourself, which affects your confidence, which affects you moving forward and doing things that you want to do. And so I want to be a spokesperson for women about this because, it's all about how did I move through this and what do I have to offer? Is about really understanding, first of all, appreciating all of this and realizing that we're not alone in this feeling of feeling less than. I thought my whole thing of not feeling enough was my bag. I'm realizing it's a lot of women's bag, that they have to move through this. And so for me, I have a program where I think it starts with clarity of figuring out who you really are. And it's about learning how to not pay attention to the noise and make time for yourself to really go within and understand, your inner voices and listen and honor and love that inner self, and stop giving so much playtime to the inner critic. I think it's important to I'm all about humor. I think self-care and humor go hand in hand. And so I love, being able to laugh at myself and be honest about the stupid things that sometimes I do, and mistakes and goofy things, and embrace, because what I'm saying is embrace all of you. And when you embrace everything, when you embrace your goofy side and the things you mess up on and fall flat on your face, then you get to really embrace the parts of you that are absolutely hitting it out of the park and fabulous. You can't fully embrace all of that high achievement that's inside of us, inside of you, if you don't also embrace the parts of you that, you get when you mess up, because we do. And so, going back to the little boys and little girls, boys just, are much more conditioned to shake it off and not have those high expectations. And so, I could go on and on about that, but it's really about mindset. It's really about taking the time to pay attention to what our inner voice is. I think self-care and self-talk and self-love are all wrapped up in the same.
Agree. There's a couple of things that highlighted to me as you were speaking, was that for those of you who are called to be an entrepreneur, there have been telltale signs of it since you were younger. And so pay attention to those signs. Another thing that was highlighted to me as you were speaking was that, we can't have it all. And it just takes practice and some ingenuity and some innovation and some help, some insight from other people. Mm-hmm. I read on your website that you were fortunate enough to get the right coaches into your life to assist you on that path. And this is why I bring people like Sherri on this podcast and blogcast, because, there's different folks with different strokes and different seasons. And so it's important that you really find someone that you resonate with, who you can really have some honest conversations, because they've been through it as well. And so that's the beauty of having a coach, especially one who focuses on self-care like Sherri, because it allows you to really hone in on that specific thing. And we don't know what we don't know. And a lot of times people are not aware of the root issue. And so people like Sherri are able to do that as well. When you're talking about, losing sleep, and I was thinking about the belief systems that we grow up with and how they really, in some ways, that those are the boundaries and the limitations of our life. And in some ways, those things are good, but they can also be very detrimental. And so how were you able to change some of those belief systems? Yeah. And, mindset, they say mindset is everything. It does really begin in that space. I remember one of the verses I love is that, we will prosper and be in health as our soul, which is our mind, will, and emotions. That's our mindset, prospers. And so how did you get into, or be open? Were you always open to the personal development or to this prospering of your soul or prospering of your mindset? Did you recognize that was the path for you to get the things that you wanted?
I think I have been a pretty open person. I mean, I had some trauma that happened as a child that I didn't deal with until I was an adult, and but have had my share of therapy and have been in that vulnerable place and asking for help. So I've been down that road, and I was pretty open, and I've been one of those that wants to keep. I feel like it's always important to keep working on myself, and I really appreciate those times when I'm more open to work on myself, because sometimes, I think it's a seasonal thing. We're not always ready for whatever it is to face that deep honesty. So I'm always really appreciative when I'm in that very open place. And, I had a coach that I, was working with for a lot of years and had done a lot of good. And then I was stuck. And so we can all get stuck. And I had just gotten way too comfortable. And, I always was explaining, I always had a good explanation, a good reason, a good distraction was what I would say. I was distracted. And, I had things that were going on in my life that you could say, yep, that makes sense. but it wasn't really I wasn't aligned with what I really was saying. I was saying in one respect, I wanted to be a leader and I wanted to pursue my career a lot more so than I was doing. So I wasn't aligned with that. And so he called me on my shit, basically. I mean, I got called out, and it was at a time when I was really ready to listen. So I think that's important, is when you get called out and you are ready, then you start making those changes. And so for me, it was letting go. I mean, I truly, as far as the not sleeping, it was truly a crash and burn wake up story. I mean, I had a really serious accident that wasn't physically harming for me, but it could have been. And that was a real wake up call for me about the fact that I wasn't sleeping a lot. And so I still am a night owl. I still like staying up late, and I don't stay up late like I used to. And I make sure I get my sleep. I didn't used to do that. So now, it's like, better, you can do better. It's the little things that I do that have changed my psyche. I'm paying attention so much more to how I feel on almost a minute by minute basis. And so I don't allow the things that used to kind of fester in me to stay that way. I've just gotten so much more connected with myself. It's not that I'm a yogi and I, meditate for hours a day. It's not anything like that. It's like, I'm still living my fast-paced life. I'm still me. And I've learned some tools that keep me. So if I get upset, if I get feeling down, if I get scared, whatever those things that happen, I don't stay down for very long. I have learned how to process through it. And I look for to understand what's going on. And then I'm able to move through it. But I think you have to face things that you're dealing. I mean, we deal with a lot of stuff. There's a lot of noise out there. And there's a lot of reasons that, we can get hurt. And the funny thing is, because I'm talking about this so much, if I had a thing this weekend that I had my feelings hurt, and I was talking to a friend. And so my friends are pushing it back. They're like, well, you are talking about choosing vibrancy, so I can't get away from it, because I am in the process of always talking about this, which is part of what I believe you have to do is you can't just learn something. You can't just read a self-help book and think that's going to be enough. You have to live it. You have to integrate it. It has to be integrated into your daily life and daily practice. And it's an ongoing thing for me. It's not ever going to stop. I'm going to be working on this stuff. I think we work on our stuff, if we're willing to, for our whole life.
A couple of things that you said that popped into my head. We're talking about images for children, and then the phrase, repetition is the key to mastery, but it's also a key to developing patterns and traps because
yes.
Our subconscious loves safety and security. And so it loves the comfort zone. When you get to a certain place, and even if that comfort zone is not the best for you, through the process of repetition, it's like the devil, so you can manage it because you know the devil, so you can go ahead and do what you need to do. So I was thinking about that. And then when you were talking about confronting, the other phrase that came to mind was what is not confronted cannot change. And having the courage to confront what's making you too comfortable, maybe. And then asking yourself just questions, because a lot of people don't even ask themselves the question of why, and they just kind of excuse it away, and everything just sounds like I remember Danny Johnson years ago when I heard her. She said, excuses are never more than well-planned out lies. And they sound good in the moment, and they feel good in the moment because they're justifying you staying stuck or you staying in your comfort zone, even if and everyone's always called for more. And it's not a more for greed. It's just because as humans, we're created to expand and to hold. And there's so much capacity for greatness and potential in everybody. So unless we are constantly, we have our periods of rest, obviously, but then, we don't grow, muscles don't grow unless there's a small period of stress. And that's really the period of you growing. So I wanted to ask you, there's something else that you said. I was like, oh, that's good. Embracing all of you. How did you get to the point where you recognize, I need to embrace all of me, the light, the dark, the grays? And it reminded me of, I do EFTs, which is tapping emotional freedom technique. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that you do in EFT is that, you're confronting it. So the first thing you do is you actually talk about the negative to start changing the belief system. And then you're choosing to overcome it. And then you install the new belief system. But it has to do with you having to confront it, but it's also about embracing yourself. In most EFTs, people say, and I love, accept, and honor and forgive myself, because we have to do all those things as well. What has been some of the methods or some of the ways that you were able to embrace the fullness of who you are?
You ask great questions, Raquel. This is so much about my program. I think, where I am mentoring people is exactly my own personal story. I think that's where you have to come from. Like, what do we know? What has worked for us? And so the first part of my program is clarity, so that you get really clear on who you are and what really impassions you. The second step of my program is courage. And the third is consistency, about the whole discipline of repetition. So we're in such great synergy here. The courage part has been about, being human and being honest. And I think because I've surrounded myself in circles where it's been safe to do that, I've had a lot of support. I think having, mentors in your life allows for that. And I've had some wonderful ones, because it can be scary to do. I mean, there've been times where I've been working on my stuff and I really couldn't see beyond the next step. It was pretty dark. And it was only because of having the support of a mentor or coach that allowed me to keep going. And to, and I guess it's really that repetition of being honest and then seeing how great it feels to put it down, to let it go, to forgive myself, to forgive others, And so there's work involved, and then there's rewards for doing the work. And so it's that repetition that has gotten me to understand that that's what it takes. That is, we're all so human. We're all so flawed. I love the phrase being perfectly imperfect, because that's really what I think we are. The whole idea of being perfect, or, I don't know, pretending. I just don't have I don't have the energy for it anymore. I don't have the space for it anymore. So it's surrounding myself around people that have really supported that. And then, I think it's that combination of being able to laugh at the mistakes. I've heard so many stories, and I have one segment that I love interviewing people that's called Unstoppable Stories, because I love that. I love those stories of triumph where people have faced something that could be, a really big thing, or simply some, personal doubt, and they've been able to push through it and champion their own desires. I love those stories. And that's talking about how you've fallen on your face and you keep going. And so, I have a talk about the art of failure, because I think and I love to win. I'm very competitive. I play games. I want to win. I watch sports. I want to cheer my teams to win. It feels great to win. And we learn the most when we fall on our face. That's the only time we actually win. That we learn. So there's triumph in failing as well. If we know that we're going to keep going, then so it's changing our belief about that. I think when you change your belief about what it means to fall on your face, it's temporary, then it's okay. You keep going.
Yeah, there is so much power in the reframing of your own story. because and the power of words. I always tell people that words are containers of power. They are your servants. They activate that reality, and they're going to empower you or disempower you. Yeah. And so when we don't take words seriously, then the words that we even say to ourselves, we don't take seriously, which is why so many people, when they do the New Year's resolutions, it's like, by February, March, it's gone because they didn't take their own word seriously. Mm-hmm. And when you start to really look at these things like, oh, wait, I can take my power back by reframing what I'm going through, by confronting it so I can release it so it can be changed. And so that way I can tell myself a new story, because that's all we're doing. We're living off of the stories that we tell ourselves, whether those stories are true or not. People always tell me, well, I want to live my truth. Everyone lives their truth. It's just not always true. It's your belief system, right? And your belief system has great things in it, but we all have lies that we believe. And until we start to really take the time to have the courage to say, wait, that's one of the questions. And because we have that in us when we're stuck, like, is this all there is? Mm-hmm. And the answer is always no, there's always more. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But you have to be courageous enough. And when we were talking about perfection, one of my coaches, her name is Rita, and I remember this so distinctly. She said it recently. She said, perfection is fear in another outfit. Mm. And perfection, usually I find with my clients who have this perfection thing they're trying to get over, is because they're critical thinkers. Mm-hmm. And with a critical thinking ability, you're able to see the holes to things, which is your gift. The gift that you can analyze. But like any gift, when it's taken out of balance, it swings one way or the other. You end up wanting to be perfect, because it's also that spirit of excellence, of wanting to do a great job, wanting to make sure that everything is as good as it can possibly be, which is very noble. And it's something that everybody should strive for, where people who are either very hyper left brain or critical thinkers or hyper analytic, that's their gift, is to be excellent. Their gift is to see the holes in order to avoid it. But then they can go into analysis paralysis, start to tell themselves negative stories, and only go into that cycle. So when you're feeling like everything has to be perfect, that's your indicator, like danger, Will Robinson, danger. Your beautiful gift is going to bite you in the butt. So,
I think what's under that is that you don't feel enough. If you have to feel like you have to be perfect, then it's like, or what? What happens if you're not perfect? Then people are going to find out you're not enough. They're going to know the truth of you. And that's the lie that we're telling ourselves, that we're not enough unless we do such and such, that we're putting these conditions, it goes back to, we have to love ourselves unconditionally.
Yes. When you said that, it reminded me of one of my coaches, Lance, and he said, one of the things that everyone struggles with is that if you knew me for who I really was, will you still love me? Mm-hmm. And this is why we end up, whether it's perfectionism or some other modality that shows up, which can also come off as people pleasing, saying yes, not having boundaries, not making healthy boundaries. It's that, or even like making money. We're both entrepreneurs, and sometimes, because depending on our upbringing, with this thing of how they spoke about people with money, or how you saw that people with money were miserable. And then you learn these things when you're little. And when you're little, you take everything at face value. So you're like, oh, when you have money, that means people are screaming, which means money is scary, which means money is bad. Yep. I just want enough not to argue. I just want enough so nobody's pissed off. I just want enough so people don't stop liking me because I have it, and start saying these things behind my back. And so all these experiences that we have before the age of 7, because we have no context, we just take everything the way it is. We're in this hypnotic state as children. And so that's what they say, the children just absorb everything. And we do. And now that we're starting to come understand, like, wow, where did that belief system come from? Anything that comes up where like, I want to change, asking the question, what is my actual belief? Not my assumption, not what I want, not what I want to change. When it comes up, what are the stories that are coming up regarding that belief? And then how did it get there?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then understanding, oh, I can reframe this. And that's another thing too, is that when you're changing, understanding that that's a death of self. That part of your identity has to die in order for you to get what you want. Because what you want wants you to, and is calling out to you. But as long as you're self-identifying with this other narrative, it's like you're always having this split personality, and then you feel like, you know, doing the cha-cha, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and you can't get it together. The other thing I wanted to talk a little bit more about is that how do people hear your Unstoppable Stories series? Because that's something that people can do consistently to hear, to kind of make sure that they're feeding themselves with good stories. There's so many things on social media, and what's always really hot are things that are super sexy or super toxic.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
You know, we need to, the good book says to renew your minds daily. And this is part of how you can renew your mind, to listen to other people's unstoppable stories. So that way, you know, you will learn something from it, because everybody has something to share. You can always learn something from somebody. So how is it that they can listen to these unstoppable stories of people that you're having these conversations with?
They can follow my YouTube channel. So all of my social media is Choosing Vibrancy. So it's Choosing Vibrancy on YouTube. I have some of them posted on my Instagram page. That's Choosing Vibrancy, and I have a public group called Choosing Vibrancy. Some of those get posted on that as well. So that would be
awesome.
A good place to find them.
So that's a really great place too for people who are looking for, you know, others that are just like you and want to choose vibrancy, want to choose a better life, want to have a fulfilled life. Then I encourage you to find her Facebook page. The other thing I wanted to just mention is that you have a self-care quiz at choosingvibrancy.com. Can you tell us a little bit more about that quiz and what people should expect as the results of it, so that way we can entice them to go and take that quiz?
Yeah, thank you. Go to my website, Choosing Vibrancy, and you'll see it right there. You can download the quiz, and I think it's more, there's not a score that, you know, you don't get a pop-up at the end that tells you whether you passed or not. I think what I'm happy to do is to offer I do like a 15-minute kind of insight follow-up call, so somebody can book with me right on my website if they want to talk more about it. But there are areas that I chose of asking to hopefully uncover your belief system about self-care. And you know, kind of I'm trying to, my intention is to break it down so that you can see the different ways that you're not following self-care and could perhaps, you know, and definitely not perhaps, definitely add more self-care to your everyday life. So I think it's good for insight to be, you know, it's an introspective kind of a thing. And then I'd love to talk to you about it.
Awesome. You might hear the sirens.
I hear.
My world, when you hear a noise like that, that means that was important. Bells, you know, things going off. And I was like, oh, that was important for somebody. So somebody needs to go take that
Somebody
self-care.
needs it. Yeah, really.
Vibrancy.com. That's really amazing. And check her out on all her social medias at Choosing Vibrancy on Instagram, Facebook, and on YouTube. And of course, her website at choosingvibrancy.com. Is there anything else that you would like to share, Sherri, before we wrap up this podcast?
Well, I've loved this conversation. I think we are completely aligned in our, you know, just how we're putting out our talents and passions in the world. So I love what you're doing as well. That was my dog. That's my siren. He's like, take me out. Yeah, I mean, you know, I think, and I have a weekly newsletter that I send out as well that you can sign up for. And it started out, so when the whole COVID and the world shut down back in 2020, I was really kind of scared to talk live at that point. I've gotten over it, but I was scared, and I thought, I want to make people laugh. So I started doing a Facebook Live every day, 7 days a week, where I would tell a joke or two. So I realized humor was really an important thing. And so then for a while, I had a newsletter that was only jokes. I was getting people to send me jokes. And now my newsletter is about everyday self-care with a side of humor. So I'm always collecting, cartoons and stories and things. So you can if you want some self-care tips every week and some jokes, that's another source. So, I'll leave it by saying, look for ways to get a belly laugh every day. It could be calling a friend. It could be, my dog brings me to a belly laugh pretty much every day. Surround yourself around people that aren't taking life too seriously. Not to say there's not serious things going on, but you got to have a break from it. Subscribe to a podcast that makes you laugh, funny movies, whatever it is. But laughter, when you're laughing, when you're smiling, in that moment, you can't feel anxiety, sadness, less than. It is truly a joyful connection with yourself and your spirit, and somebody else that you're sharing the laugh with makes it even better. So laugh more.
Hit the wrong button. But that's a really good way to end the podcast. Thank you so much for being here on Mindset Revolution with Raquel. Again, this is my guest, Sherri Danzig from choosingvibrancy.com. I'll make sure to put all her information in the description, so it'll be an easier reference point for you to reach out to her directly. Until next time, may all God's riches and best be yours. Have a good one.